Everybody. Okay, I'm gonna share with you guys how to do a super quick and simple double exposure because it seems like a few of you were a little bit confused last time how to do it. So I want to just give you one straightforward example on how to make something like this. So first off, we need to start with our photograph. There are two photographs that we're going to use. This will be one of them. So we'll drag this into Photoshop. And because it's a .cr2 file, it is a raw image, which means we're opening this up in Camera Raw first. So we want to go ahead and do all of our, that looks blurry. Maybe I use a different one. Yes. Check that again. This one's sharper. Okay. So let's drag and drop this into Camera Raw. As you can see, I've already done some settings that have saved before. So make sure that you're happy with your Camera Raw settings. And then you're going to open your object in Photoshop. And again, because this is a raw image, we can always double click our smart object and come back to Camera Raw in case we need to adjust something again. All right, now we need our second image. And for this example, I'm going to use this photograph I took from a steel wool experiments back in the day. And keep in mind, both of these are actually my images. So let's duplicate this steel wool image, Command J to duplicate it. I'm going to turn off the eyeball on one of them. And we'll make this as screen. Okay, so that's the first part, the basic idea of how a double exposure works. But we want to specifically isolate them to our Daddy Yankee and his colleagues. I guess you call Daddy Yankee's colleagues. Okay, select, and we do subject. And this is going to select the three of our subjects from our background. And we will click this layer mask and make them on their own, popping out from the background. Turning this back on, we have our steel wool photograph on screen. And if we hold Option, we're going to get this clipping mask icon popping up. So we click that and we've done a clipping mask to the portrait of Daddy Yankee. And we can move this around as we please, make it bigger, smaller with the transform tool, and line it up to where we think it looks the best. Okay. So anywhere you please. I think it's also nice to see those city lights inside their actual glasses. Okay. So next up, we can click this little black and white circle down here, which is to create a new adjustment layer. We'll click solid color, and we can make it whatever we want. Let's just go for here. We'll drag that below Daddy Yankee and below the steel wool image. So that's our background color. We can always double click it, change our color as we feel necessary or not. And so far so good. I think maybe I'll move that up a little bit. And then we can duplicate this steel wool layer so that we can also find other ways to integrate this within our edit. That's another way we can approach it. So from here, we can also change the blending mode, which means it's going to interact a little bit more with that background. We can change our background, not really feeling this. Okay. And then we'll maybe add a curves layer to darken our background so that way Daddy Yankee and his guys pop a little bit more. We can lower the opacity. Or maybe we lower the opacity of the color. That's a good idea. Okay. Now from here, we also want to change how these three musicians appear, reggaeton rappers. So let's add another curves layer, and you'll see that it's automatically made as a clipping mask because I added the curves layer selected over here with this layer. So we can lower the curves, make them blend in a little bit better. Or maybe we want to make them pop out a little more depending on what you guys are feeling for your particular image, and every single person's work is going to differ. Okay, we can go back to this other curves layer. Wondering if I can drag this, and that's going to change the shadows over there to be not so dark. Another cool tip you guys can utilize is, let's see here. We can put an extra layer mask here, and with our brush tool, we can brush away parts of the image that maybe we want to blend a little bit better to see their faces. So their faces pop a little bit more because we're hiding that the steel wool image, the second image, and deciding where we want their bodies to kind of blend through from the original image and to help define them a little bit more. Okay, so that's just an option that you guys have. Be choosy about where you blend them all. This is just a basic example. What else can we do? If we add a black and white adjustment layer, either this one, or we can also do the gradient map for more of a contrast black and white, then it, everything becomes itself. And actually, I'm not digging what I did, to be honest. I'm just gonna keep their faces and make everything below that white. To edit, fill with white. So now it's just their faces that have the brush. And you could see that now it's harsh lines, and we want the blending to be better. Oops. So with our white brush, let's go ahead and blend the transition a little bit better on the layer mask. And I got there by holding Option and clicking the layer mask. Okay, much better. Also, guys, don't be afraid to, you can do edit, transform, and we can warp. Oh, it's a rasterized layer. So we can't do some things because it needs to be rasterized. So I'm going to right click here, rasterize layer. Now we could do edit, transform, warp. We can also warp the images that we are using in our double exposure, like so. So don't forget that those are also options. Okay, going back to how we made this into a black and white layer. So with this, I want to introduce to you guys, there's a color balance tool, and you can click your shadows, midtones, and your highlights, which represents the darks and the lights of your image. So let's say we click shadows over here, and we can adjust the color balance to make our shadows more blue. And we can also adjust our highlights, so maybe it's more green or maybe more red as well. So I want you guys to also play around with these, see what other colors you guys come up with. You can also change the blending mode of your color balance layer to see if there's any other effects that you are more fond of. If we do overlay, we can also lower the opacity so it blends in with the original colors. Well, you can also lower the opacity to black and white so it comes back a little bit more desaturated. There's also this photo filter, which is this one over here, which is just to help give you a different all-around color tint on your works, okay? So that's the basic idea of how you can do a double exposure. Remember, one image on a different blending mode, and it clips to your portrait or your subject. I added a background. You can also not have a background and have it as a solid color background as well. That's also fine. But I want you guys to get creative and feel free to experiment a lot with this double exposure assignments because it's a really cool one and it can be used in a lot of scenarios. For example, if you're making album work or music work, in this case, I'm working for Daddy Yankee, then people love it when you get real creative with it. And also, let's say we have this over here, our position, but it's not enough. We can always, of course, duplicate this and move it around as well. Change the blending mode so we have two steel wool images showing up. Lower the opacity on some so they blend a little bit better. But I'm just kind of freestyling right now with other possibilities. Let's see here. That's pretty much it. I can also make this curves layer over here, darken it, and Command I to invert the layer mask, and we'll just be painting in areas that we want to darken with our white brush tool over this black layer. We'll lower that so it's not at full strength, and we want to just darken their faces so that way some information comes back and you can see a little bit better who it is. And maybe the steel wool, it's a little bit too harsh on their face still. In this case, so I'm going to use my black brush tool and bring his face back a little bit. All right, there you go.